till I can't no more.
I got the horses in the bag. Horse stock is a tag.
Hi everyone, and welcome to Murdock 36. In today's video, we'll be speculating about how Peter Parker could clear his name in Spider-Man 3. Now, before we begin, if at any point you enjoyed this video, I would really appreciate if you could drop a like, as that would really help out the channel. Thank you. Now, we don't know exactly what happened to Peter after the events of Far From Home. However, we have pretty solid evidence that he is in hiding after Mysterio exposed him and lied about the fact that he was behind his murder and the destruction of London. And recently, an actor has been cast as the detective in the film, most likely trying to find out where exactly Peter is. However, one way Peter could clear his name is by using a scroll, specifically Telos. Now, this is something a lot of people joked about, that this could happen and how easily it could be done, where Telos takes up the form of Peter while Peter dresses up as Spider-Man, to show that they are two different people. And it would make sense since Telos did meet Peter as Nick Fury, even though Peter didn't know it was a scroll and not the actual Nick Fury. So I wouldn't be surprised if Telos helps him out by trying to make sure that his secret identity stays a secret. Also, it would set up the Secret Invasion Disney Plus show that Kevin Feige announced that they're doing. So this could also be one of the reasons why this is possible. And as much as I don't mind that happening, I don't think it will happen. I think this is one of the most unlikely options that they will take for the film, simply because they're probably going to take a more grounded approach on how Peter could clear his name. However, it's still possible that Ben Mendelsohn could reprise his role as Telos in Spider-Man 3, but then again, we just have to wait and see. Now, the second option could be very interesting, and that is revealing that Mysterio was actually alive, as a lot of people, including myself, still think that he is alive in the background trying to ruin Peter's life. However, after the climax of the film, when Peter saves the day and Mysterio is found, Peter could reveal the fact that he was a fraud and he was the villain the entire time, which would automatically prove that Spider-Man wasn't the villain in Far From Home and that it was all Mysterio's fault, potentially also lying about the fact that Peter Parker and Spider-Man are the same person. However, that would be more of a tricky situation, as there's no way to prove that they're not the same person, and this could potentially mean that Peter has to find another way to gain his secret identity back. However, as we saw the posters in the set video, which if you don't know what I'm talking about, I made a video on it, which you can check out in the card in the right hand corner of the video, where the public is pretty much divided on whether he's telling the truth or not. But if they were going to go into that direction, that would mean that not only was Mysterio wrong about the fact that Peter Parker was a villain using Stark technology in order to terrorize London, but he was also most likely wrong about a 16-year-old kid being a well-known superhero in New York, which that alone would also divide a lot of people into thinking whether or not Mysterio was actually telling the truth. Another way could be Doctor Strange wiping out everyone's memories that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. This theory is actually something a lot of people believe that this will happen, since in one of the set photos was showing Tom Holland as Peter Parker walking into the Peter Pan bakery store where Zendaya's MJ is most likely working at, showing that Peter Parker does have some sense of normality and that this will most likely take place towards the end of the film, or at least after the climax. And it looks like the public isn't really batting an eye when Peter Parker is just walking down the street, showing that either Peter Parker has cleared his name and that he somehow convinced everyone that he's not Spider-Man, or the fact that Doctor Strange makes everyone forget that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. And with Doctor Strange's appearance being confirmed for Spider-Man 3, there are definitely a lot of evidence that suggests that this is how Peter Parker will clear his name. And I think this is probably one of the most likely options, as something similar happened in the comics too, so the MCU could definitely be doing the same thing, which I wouldn't put it past them. However, I feel like there are more interesting directions that they could go with, but it does look like this could definitely happen. Well, another option is the fact that Peter Parker just proves his innocence in court. And how would he do that? By bringing in Matt Murdock, aka Daredevil, as his lawyer. Now, Daredevil has been heavily rumored, especially with Charles Murphy from Murphy's Multiverse, that Charlie Cox will be returning as Daredevil in Spider-Man 3. It would make a lot of sense, since Spider-Man 3 would be the perfect time to introduce Matt Murdock into the MCU, and a lot of people has been asking for Charlie to be back as the Man Without Fear, so I could definitely see that happening. And if this were to happen, I would love it if Peter Parker's innocence was cleared but Spider-Man's wasn't, so Matt Murdock would be able to convince everyone that Peter Parker and Spider-Man are not the same person, possibly even including Ben Mendelsohn's Telos to pretend as Peter Parker while Peter Parker dresses up as Spider-Man, since he has the powers to prove it. So I really hope they go into that direction, since Spider-Man will continue to be a controversial figure in the MCU, just like he's been in every medium, especially in the comics, showing that Far From Home and potentially Spider-Man 3 will have lasting consequences influences on Peter Parker, whether that be as a civilian or as Spider-Man. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does actually prove his innocence. However, some people like J. Jonah Jameson himself would think otherwise and still think that he's a menace and that he's a criminal and deserves to be locked up. It's also possible that they could prove that Spider-Man hasn't done those things, but yet still keep the secret identity public where everyone knows that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. But I really hope that they don't, since the secret identity of Spider-Man has always been one of the most key and interesting parts of the character, as he's just a normal guy who's trying to live a regular life while also being a superhero. So I really hope that they keep that intact in the MCU, but also still have people thinking whether Mysterio was actually telling the truth or not, and that they probably will have this divided point of view of the friendly neighborhood hero. And it's not something that the MCU have shied from, since they did do something similar for the Avengers, as most people see them as heroes. However, there is a select few that see them as people who are responsible for all the death and destruction, which eventually led to Civil War. But with Spider-Man, I hope there's more of a divide on the public's point of view on the webhead, but as usual, we shall wait and see. However, what about you guys? How do you think Peter Parker will clear his name in Spider-Man 3? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter. If you enjoyed this video, please like, and want more, subscribe. To begin, Protocol 36.